knows. You're the taxpayers here, and anytime we need something or it needs to be done, you should be able to have the ability to vote on it. I'm just not a fan of certificates of obligation. Oh, I get the next one.
Thank you, Barb.
Thank you.
Are we having an issue up there with something?
It was a mosquito.
Oh, okay.
He's a loud little guy. Huh?
Get AJ on.
No, that's fine, AJ. You can stay here.
All right, good. All right. Part of a county judge's job is to get the sheriff's department the resources he needs to do his job. Does the sheriff's department have adequate resources? If not, how would you attempt to increase? If so, how would you attempt to decrease those resources?
The sheriff's office, we all know, does not have adequate resources because their budget's been cut and cut and cut and cut. And I know that deputy-wise, we don't have many deputies on duty at once. I mean, this is a big county. If you've ever tried to run from one end to the other in case something happened, that takes time. And these deputies are working, they're working crazy schedules because Fall City's way over there and Runge's way over there. And so if something happens in Fall City, that's a prime time to help yourself in Runge. If something happens in Runge, that's a prime time to help yourself in Fall City. And we all know it because the coverage is not out there. And we can't hold, we've got to hold him responsible for his job, but we've got to give him the tools to do his job. I mean, simply said, I think law enforcement and protection for our citizens is much more important than a building or a historical anything. We need to take care of our citizens. That's our job.
Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you. Addressing the sheriff's budget, I think that if he demonstrates that he needs more money because he's only got an inadequate deputy supply, I think that that's our obligation to get that to him. That's more important than the number of filing cabinets in the clerk's office. But we're going to have to require an ordered demonstration by each of these departments. And I would like to disagree with Mrs. Shaw's statement just a moment ago. In the current budget, the sheriff's department is funded with $1,027,000, $1,027,000 and change, which is up $6,000 from the amount that was funded last year. So it's important to know that just because the executive department holder, whether it's the sheriff or some other department, says, "Oh, we're short on money," we need to be able to use a businessman's eye, trained in budget analysis and observant of the details, because these people are getting more money, they're just not spending it. Thank you.
Thank you. Domestic violence is an issue in Karnes County. How would you utilize your judicial and oversight powers to combat this problem?
Thank you. I think the question is inappropriately directed at a panel of county judge officers. The domestic relations issues, they're experts on it right here. Mr. Villanueva sitting in there, he's had to answer many and many of these calls. They come under the district court's jurisdiction, and they come under the sheriff's jurisdiction first of all. And when the sheriff says that he needs a night officer, or he needs further matters support to deal with them, that's an entirely different matter altogether. I think that the county judge has to recognize that this is one of the quasi-executive units of county government. And if there's a demonstrated shortfall, well, we can talk about taxes, we can talk about fines and penalties. But until that's been demonstrated, we're just simply speculating, and I think the question is kind of inappropriate. Excuse me.
Thank you. Domestic violence is an issue in Karnes County. How would you utilize your judicial and oversight powers to combat this problem?
When you're looking at, I mean, you're saying domestic violence. That's not actually something that we have a lot of control over. That's your deputies, your cops, your law enforcement. They're the ones that make that call. They're the ones that make those domestic violence calls. And if I remember correctly, I worked with domestic violence. It was one of my biggest fortes in previous jobs. I don't see it in this one. But what I remember the most about it is, domestic violence, it lives in poverty. We're a poverty county, so yeah, we have these huge loads of domestic violence. I perceive it as a real problem because of the people, and I'm a people person. But as judge, I'm not going to have any control over what happens in these domestic violence cases other than ones that, come to court. Other than that, we got to remember what domestic violence is, what actually defines domestic violence. And that's going to be your sheriff's departments, it's going to be your law enforcement, that's going to be them. They're going to be making those calls, not us.
Thank you very much. Looks like we have about 17 minutes left, so we'll probably do questions for about 10 more, and then we'll do closing statements. This is a quick one. What sort of development do you oppose?
Anything that wastes the taxpayers' money. I think anytime we're going to have developments, it needs to be something that's going to benefit the citizens of Karnes County. I don't want to have a lot of developments that are going to be very costly without a lot of benefit. I don't understand making and doing things. I mean, how do you run your home life? Do you go out and buy stuff you can't afford? And you just don't do it. So that's just a pretty simple question.
All right, thank you. Mr. Tennant?
Thank you. I think the question needs to be redefined. If we're talking about how do you like development, because the Texas Department of Transportation wants to put a 6-lane highway through the middle of Kennedy, you've got a different sort of problem altogether on your hands. We're talking about development in the form of people renting highway properties to put a pipe yard in. That's interim development and doesn't have a long-range future. Karnes County has no zoning. If we were prescient, if we could see into the future and had our own best interests at heart, we would bite the hard bullet of zoning. This is going to be industrial over here, this is going to be residential here, and so on. But we're not at that stage, and there are hard commercial decisions that would have to be made before that. As to other development, I say to you, in the shadow of this oncoming Eagle Ford Shale and other prospects, I think all development has to be self-sustaining and doesn't deserve tax breaks. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Both candidates have mentioned they will have open government. I work for a living, and traditional office hours are not realistic for me to contact the judge. Would it be possible for the judge to open up an email or Facebook account? Would you support having a website and streaming videos of county meetings similar to what churches provide?
Of course. This was brought up, discussed, and promised to the public in the debates that were held both in this room and in the Karnes City High School auditorium. In fact, shortly after that, the Honorable Clyde Eccles was enlisted to see if he couldn't put his finger on the technology that would be necessary to make this occur, and he graciously said he'd be interested in such a project. And I think it's just the wave of the future, and it would be silly to look at it any other way. I say open government is when you, reading that question, have the gumption to get on the telephone and call your commissioner. That's your direct representative. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tennant. Need to press from your red bar?
Please read it again. I'm sorry.
Both candidates have mentioned that they will have open government. I work for a living, and traditional office hours are not realistic for me to contact a judge. Would it be possible for the judge to open up an email or Facebook account? Would you support having a website and streaming videos of county meetings similar to what churches provide?
Well, I'm in agreement with Mr. Tennant. Technology is a good thing there. Joe has done that. Joe's come to a couple of commissioners' court meetings. He's streamed them live. We've seen little clips and clamps here and there. I think, as I said before, real life happens in real time, so I'm going to give you access. That's not even an issue. You can have my email address. If I'm elected, I'll give you my cell phone number. My home phone number's in the book. You can call me anytime you want on that. So I'm accessible that way. But we need to make ourselves accessible to the people because we work for you. You pay our salary. If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be here. So we need to make ourselves as accessible as possible to you. I mean, of course, we have lives too. You know, I'm not saying that I'm going to be working, I'm going to be a 24-hour county judge. I'm just saying that we've all worked this 24-hour on-call jobs. It's not hard to be on call, and you should have access to us if needed. So I suggest we use that technology. County judge on Facebook, that Facebook thing doesn't always, that's not always a good thing. Technology is good, but not so much as in Facebook.
Thank you. Barbara, you starting this one?
I'm sorry. I automatically, we were just taking turns there, sorry.
All right. What is the most important issue for the county's future?
I think the most important issue for the county's future is economic development. I'm a big fan of economic development. I do believe in tax abatements. I want to get you here. I don't care how I get you here. I have to give in order to receive. Victoria just got that Caterpillar plant. There's rules and regulations, these abatements. We don't just give them and throw them. And the final, it's a process. It's a step. And I mean, there's a whole package put together on economic development and how you can go about doing that. I want to see growth. I want to be progressive versus regressive. I want to see it here. I don't like looking at the neglected, abandoned buildings. They just don't do a lot for me. So I think that's one of my main concerns. I want to see this community grow. I want to see it thrive, and I want to see progress. Thanks to Marietta for moving the pumpkins out of the window. We found that very nice. Let's put stuff in those windows. Let's put businesses in there. Let's make this community thrive. Let's make it a place that we're proud of and a place that you can come back to.
Well, the county's future is important in so many different ways, not only to this generation, but to our children and to our parents. But you can't predict one set of growth patterns that's going to fit everybody. That certainly isn't the